One of the big topics that's, I think, really on the minds of most CISOs and security practitioners today is how AI can be best leveraged in the context of security operations. I have one of my friends here, someone I've known for a while. We've published together, good, real expert in this area, Mike Lyborg from Swimlane, that I'm going to ask some questions, ask him to share with us his insights on kind of what he's seeing in terms of AI in the SOC, where it's going, how it's evolving, what he's using. I think you'll enjoy it. So I hope you stick around and watch what we've got. I think you'll enjoy it. Hi, this is Ed Amoroso from TAG. I want to welcome you to our discussion today. I have an expert here who's going to help us get some insight into how AI can be best leveraged in the SOC. It's Mike Lyborg, who's the CISO over at Swimlane. Mike, how you doing? Welcome. Thanks for making time today.
I'm doing great. Thank you, Ed. And thanks again for having me on. I'm not sure if I could claim that expert piece, but we all try, right?
Well, experts always say that.
All right.
No, I mean, practitioner to me is the highest calling. Anybody who's working day in, day out to try to deal with threats, that's the place you get good insight because you're not going to get a lot of academic mumbo jumbo. You're going to get here's what works and here's what doesn't work. But I want to say maybe to begin, maybe just say a couple words about yourself, your time at Swim Lane, kind of your area of emphasis, and then I'm going to ask you some questions about whether this newfangled artificial intelligence is something that's going to either change, augment, or enhance the SOC. But tell us a little bit about you, Mike.
Yeah, so thank you, Ed. Name's Mike Lyborg. Been with Swimlane just over 8 years. Kind of grown up here a bit. Moved up the ladders, but prior to this, I was doing security work for a public company and the vet tech. And then prior to that, 12 years as a United States Marine. And way prior to that, networking and IT security in Lower Alabama. And as you can tell, I often do caveat with this. I'm originally from Sweden, so that's part of my accent. There you go.
A Swedish Southern accent sounds pretty
I
good.
know. Yeah, and then obviously being in the Marine Corps, mainly out in North Carolina and up and down the East Coast and overseas. But there's a lot of different accents, and yeah, so that's the explanation behind it all, I guess.
One of the things that I've noticed, kind of supporting CISOs for so long, is that the job of being Chief Information Security Officer for a security vendor is a double whammy. It's a lot of extra sort of work because in addition to protecting your company, you're providing the security for the security of another company. It's like a double job. So I certainly appreciate that complexity. I know I'm sure that keeps you pretty busy.
Yeah, no, I mean, we focus primarily, obviously, on our zero trust kind of
Hmm.
the whole enclave of looking at all of our users and all of our customers' users, right? And making sure that we can kind of balance risk and availability and resilience across all the different spectrums. But to your point, yeah, we're literally like a massive MDR service layered on top of our Turbine Cloud and SaaS platform. But in addition to that, we still have our regular duties and requirements from an enterprise IT, physical information audit, so the whole GRC piece as well. So we're
You know,
we're busy.
one of the advantages that I think Swimlane has over a lot of the startups is that you guys have been automating functions in the SOC for quite some time. We've been recommending that for as long as I can remember. Talk to me a little bit about maybe it's a dumb question, but automation versus AI. I often think people say one and mean the other. Like automating a task is a little different than handing it to an AI. What's been your perspective there? Probably more around layer one tasks, but what are you seeing? Curious what your experience has been with some of these AI tools versus, say, just simple automation.
Yeah, I think if you go ahead and just push everything to AI, you might not get the desired outcomes, right? So where where we've seen great success across our customers and internally as well is, well, obviously for the last 5+ years, we've had a dedicated, kind of like a security operations center. We call it our fusion center because it does so many more things. I mean, it does third-party risk, vulnerability management, IT on offboarding, etc. So, but all of them, all of the signals kind of still are the same across the board. But we didn't start with AI. We started with automation orchestration. So if we take a step back from that, that's very low cost from a compute perspective, right? Comparatively against AI. So that's what I'm saying. Don't throw everything at AI yet. Start with automation orchestration, and then where we've recently seen a huge benefit or several benefits has been as the last mile of of our case and incident management. That's when we contextualize, summarize, post blast or after action reports, help AI generate a lot of uh, the summaries and determinations. So best paired together, I guess, to sum it up. And also at the end of the day, it's always about the human. So we keep humans in the loop, and we're kind of a bit of an oversight committee that now we have X amount of investigations that we've had over the years. So then take our Hero AI and benchmark to see where they're really strong use cases, where it's well applied, and also where we might have some work still to do.
When we think about the work that an AI tool is doing, tell me which of the following resonate with you. It might be all of them, but I'm just curious. What one would be sort of analyzing data, another might be executing playbooks, another might be sort of just driving manual tasks in a way that the human might not know. Probably goes on and on and on, but those resonate. Are those the kinds of things that you see, today as being well suited? Or maybe there's something else. I'm curious what you've seen and what you've implemented.
Yeah, I think that the to us internally, what we kind of done is we started with where generative tools were pretty strong, and I was like, okay, well, I've written Python for probably 10, 15 years, right? But I'm not a developer by trade. So when you can offload some of those to some of those tasks to, hey, validate this. I just want to know what the risk score and threshold is using all these different cyber threat intelligence tools, summarize all of that and kind of make sense out of it. Some of those basic ones are pretty easy to implement and adopt and test and verify. Where it gets more interesting is generally when you look at, let's say we have a multilingual SOC or we follow the sun, right? So then translating some of the summaries or investigations to people's native language has been, for a lot of our customers, very, very useful as well. And from a large data set capacity, so looking at maybe a couple of years worth of data and find the needles in the haystacks, stacks, like anomalies or different trends. We have seen really good use of that. So summarizing large data sets and finding anomalies.
Cool.
When it comes to I think you had one more, playbook
Yeah,
development, right?
playbook or work, run book kind of things. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you go back a couple of years, we had playbooks as written, and then we would kind of digitize them inside Swimlane and Turbine, and we would say, okay, if this, then that. It's a very logical flow, enrich using all of these different searches, queries across multiple data sources. But now with the playbook development, it's also like, what do you recommend that we are going to do? So that's something that we're currently working on. So when you can find gaps in, well, you're doing 90% here. Do you want to close the gap? Hey, Mike, I see that you and your team for the last, 1 year have dealt with 10,000 of these kind of investigations. Um, Here's what we can do to help you fully automate that. So kind of layer on context and recommendations, and then help our orchestrators truly build very effective playbooks.
I've watched as Swimlane has helped to define automation, orchestration in the context of SOC. Like Turbine's always been at the forefront of that. I'm curious what you think about, like, as we do introduce AI, you might have alluded to this a little bit. Like, are we moving to the point where soon, and I'm curious where you see this all evolving, we get to the point where we ask the AI to consider paths that we wouldn't normally think, that a human being wouldn't have considered. These Bayesian examples of you and I given a problem, and humans, we answer one thing, but by Bayesian probability, it's a ridiculous answer we gave. It's almost like which is safer, the drive to the airport or the flight. Humans would go, oh my gosh, the drive is safer, but it's not even close. But do you think we get to that point where it's not just sort of the rote activity, but it's a little bit more intelligent work? And I'm wondering if you see things evolving in that direction. That's where most people like to debate, where that line.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good point. So I can say today, for the like, so if we look back even a week, in the last week, I'm looking at one of our dashboards right now, but we've had about 145 cases that have been autonomous. Now, we're not at the level yet where we take destructive action, or like we wipe someone's, cell phone or their corporate device remotely. But we then also dig out. So we took about 30,000 human investigations and we benchmarked that against what Hero AI would actually do. So we used really large data sets, and then we watched this for about 2, 3 months now. And so when we finally turned it on, for those use cases that are kind of high frequency, but still we wanted to have eyes on. A good example is, let's say that any of our SRE or cloud ops engineers log into AWS. To us, that is an audit function, right? Like we want to see every time someone logs in, and then from a zero trust perspective, we got to make sure, okay, they have privileged access that somebody has reviewed and approved. So it's a ticketing system with an approval process, right? And then we also want to make sure they're on a trusted device. So that's another lookup. So if you add all of these, like it ends up being like 10 checks and balances just for that one alert. Now, we have always, as humans, we have tagged it as a true positive, meaning that it was a true alert, but not a threat, but still positive from a signals and detection perspective. But what AI is doing, and what it's telling us, it's a true negative, right? Because you shouldn't really report on this, because every time we have it, and because of all the underlying controls, it is saying like, no, no, Mike, you and your team, these are not like true positive alerts, even though they're completely benign. So I think, look, if you're looking at it from a threat, it's a false positive. If you're looking at it from a GRC audit perspective, then yeah, maybe it is a true negative. So we're looking at how we're tagging, and are we looking at it from a threat detection, or we're looking at it from a GRC perspective, if that helps. But just one of the many different use cases, right? When we're starting to look at how we're tagging data.
Mike, you're a CISO, but you're also a manager. You got a team there, and I'm curious, what you and I would have been used to over the last 10 or 15 years would be hiring young people, fresh into the work environment, put them in the SOC and let them learn some things by doing tier one tasks. As we automate this, what do you think happens? Do they become maybe apprentices? Are there other jobs they do? Or maybe I'm overblowing. Maybe those jobs will still be around. But I worry, particularly myself as a computer science professor, in addition to tech, I have a lot of students who are out looking for jobs. What do you think is the next generation sort of training young people coming through a SOC? What's going to happen in your estimation?
Well, so we do see we're not replacing people with AI, at least not from my community, right? That's not generally what we're seeing. We're seeing people being more efficient. But you bring up a really important point, and that is, well, what about a year or 2 or 3 years from now, when you may not necessarily have to have that the tier one, tier two, because that could be
Yeah.
you could use AI for that, right? Um, so what I think we need to do in the community is obviously focus a lot on internships and bring people in early as they are in that transition from their whatever education that they're doing, whether that's a boot camp or it's full-blown college or university, and still make sure that everybody understands and also kind of feels the pain. I know that sounds horrible, but I think there's a lot of value of being an IT support individual, right? Where you get to talk and interface with people because you learn so much. You definitely learn what not to do, and you also learn what works. Well, there's not any difference when you're investigating a security incident or somebody violating a policy, right? You still have to interact with people often, even if a lot of these things are automated. Most of the data has been furnished and provided to you. So I don't think we should not get rid of humans yet, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But we do need to make sure that people, if they then become part of this oversight committee that I'm talking about, right, that they understand how it all works and where AI can be used responsibly and where it definitely maybe shouldn't be. And then also continue that education because we're talking about security focus here, but we still have marketing and we have sales and we have everybody that are using generative AI to probably help them do blog posts or everything else. So if they are um, uploading or putting into the context the wrong kind of or even sensitive data, uh, then we have to obviously train and educate on that as well, or put technical controls that simply stops them from making human mistakes.
You and I are on the defensive side. We're trying to protect things, and AI can be helpful there. We turn our attention to the offense. Um, Curious what you say. It's been my experience that the offensive campaigns are starting to leverage AI in a way that I don't know whether the word frightening is right. It may be. It's hard to say, but what do you think? Like, I mean, if at some point anything we can do on the defensive side, you can do on the offensive side. Are you seeing some of that?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing far more sophisticated and well. Let's just talk about phishing because I think that's something everybody sees
Good.
every day, right? But they're they're getting better and better because of the use of AI often, right? So I think then too, from a defensive perspective, we have to kind of mimic what the attackers are doing. And so that, the best defense is a good offense, or you can flip them around, right? But I truly believe in that. So whether you're taking the OWASP, and the reason why I'm saying this is we run our own private LLM, right? So we, as the security practitioners, we want to try to break that. So we still have to have an offensive mindset in order to know where our defenses are strong and where there are gaps. And then through automation, this is now like really well suited because we can take a lot of the data, context, examples, prompts, and everything else, and just put them against our development systems and then automate the testing, right? To make sure that we are doing what we're supposed to be doing. But I think holistically, from looking at the external attack surface, um, you got to read a lot. You got to see where other people are being targeted. And there's ISACs out there that will probably share some good information, what they're seeing, as well as other, cyber threat intelligence providers. So read a lot, analyze a lot, and test a lot, I think is what's going to make you better. And that still takes that human, like, hey, we may we may have a gap here. Let's figure out if this is worth our time to automate, or is there a third party product that can help us do this? So like build versus buy.
Mike, let's close with a kind of bottom line question here that I'm going to ask you to just sort of say A or B. It has to do with whether you're an optimist or pessimist here. I'm curious, when you look forward in all of this and watch things evolve, are you generally more optimistic about AI in the context of cyber, or are you pessimistic? Like a lot of people I ask would say, hey, I'm really worried about the threat here. I'm not sure we can keep up. And they'll give me an answer that's more pessimistic, but where do you stand on that spectrum?
So I'm hoping I'm not like a massive outlier here, right? But I am extremely optimistic. I think where we're seeing and where we've gained and we now have data to back it up, like where this is really successful and a good or great use case for it. But it's still that, hey, be selective and test and verify, inspect what you expect, and make sure it's delivering the outcome. Don't just, I guess what I'm trying to say here, a lot of companies and boards are probably pushing AI on their security teams or IT teams and trying to become more operationally efficient. It's okay to say, hey, let's slow down. And let's test it. Let's make sure that this is the right use case, and that you're delivering the kind of expected outcome. Because if it's now increasing your cost to something that was very easy to do via automation or just through humans, and now you're just pushing the AI envelope, or you're increasing risk due to disclosure or some other issues, then it's probably not the best case for it. But overwhelmingly, I would say I'm pretty optimistic.
I don't think you're an outlier. That's kind of where I am as well. I think that the good outweighs, some of the threat characteristics here. So I'd encourage anybody, whether they're swim lane customer or prospect or just some folks interested in cybersecurity, to make sure that you're well versed in how the emerging AI technology can enhance operations and security. So, Mike, listen, on behalf of our team at TAG and the whole community, thanks for what you do. Keep us safe. Keep doing a good job over there at Swimlane. You guys have a really wonderful platform. And let's catch up again later on, and we'll see if any of our predictions have come true.
Thank you, Ed. Really appreciate you having us today.
You bet. Nice to see you, Mike. And for those of you watching, we'll see you next time.